Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club podcast, where every week me and Miss Boo take turns picking films to watch and talk about. Some are good, some are bad, but they are always fun at the Film Club. So, Boo, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm really good because we're still celebrating Undead September.
Yes, we are.
And it's one of my favorite all-time movies that we're going to be talking about today, the true masterpiece by Edgar Wright, Shaun of the Dead.
Yes, we get to talk about Shaun of the Dead. This is my second time talking about it. I did it for the double feature podcast not too long ago, but that one, we had a really troubled recording for that one. I don't know what it is with Shaun of the Dead. There's always some technical difficulties.
There is, but hopefully we get it right this time.
We do. But yeah, Shaun of the Dead, 2004, Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, Nick Frost. Introduced that whole crew to the rest of the world, yeah.
And we're forever grateful because they are an amazing trio of people. Mm-hmm. I mean, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost alone are an amazing duo.
Yeah.
And you get the three of them together, and it's just movie magic.
Every time, yeah. This is the first of the Cornetto trilogy. We already did Hot Fuzz on the podcast, yes. Which I cannot say any higher praise for that film. Hot Fuzz is my favorite of the trilogy. And I know Shaun of the Dead is your favorite.
It is my favorite of the trilogy.
But yeah, where do you want to get started on this one?
Well, let's start with the characters.
All right.
So we have Shaun, who is our main character, and he works for kind of like...
Well, they don't have these anymore, but it's basically a Radio Shack.
Yeah, I mean, there's refrigerators there too, so it's just kind of like an electrical store of goods that you can buy, and he's just kind of really stuck in his life where he's... roommates with Nick Frost, who plays Ed, and we have their other roommate, Pete. So it's just the two buddies and Pete that's kind of the adult in the relationship, and Shaun's just kind of skipping on by, not really progressing in life.
Yeah, I mean, there's also Liz and her whole group, and the movie starts with Liz and Shaun basically breaking up.
In the pub.
Yeah, in the pub. So... the thing I noticed about this film is that this is basically a breakup movie, and then zombies show up.
Yeah. Because, I mean, a breakup isn't bad enough, so let's just throw some zombies in there.
Yeah. But it is interesting, because it's like, the zombies, they force Shaun to, Grow up, yeah. It's just a really interesting metaphor they use in the movie. I really like it. But, I want to know your thoughts. Because I know you're a fan of zombie flicks.
Oh, zombies are like my all-time irrational fear.
Yeah. Some people are afraid of spiders. Some people are of heights. You're afraid of being attacked by zombies.
Yeah, and I mean, we could talk about your irrational fear.
No, I have no irrational fears. All of mine are sound and just.
They're not, but yes, I do enjoy myself a zombie film. And for me, this is like the all-time of the zombie movies because it's funny, it's a little creepy. It has a lot of heart to it. Mm-hmm. There's a really good storyline to it. It's not just the one character that we follow. We have a cast of characters, and they're all intertwined, and sadly, it's just Shaun and Liz who make it to the very end.
This is just a really interesting movie, because it combines so many different, genres and stuff.
Yeah.
Because how would you describe this movie? Is it a horror movie? Is it a straight comedy? Is it kind of like a black comedy? Is it more like a romantic comedy thing?
No,
because people describe it as a romantic comedy with zombies. I think it's on the poster.
Probably. I mean, for me, it would be a horror comedy because we don't really get too much of the romance.
Well, that's the whole point with Liz and Shaun.
Yeah, because I mean, when we meet them, it's not in happy times. It's Liz is frustrated with the situation that they're in. They're not progressing. It's just they're very much in a rut, and maybe the next day they break up, and the day after that is the zombie apocalypse. So...
yeah, no, I really like all the characters in this. I mean, let's just talk about, the dynamic duo of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
Yes.
Because for a while there, they were, the modern-day, Laurel and Hardy.
Oh, definitely.
People would go to movies just to see the two of them in it.
Yeah.
I remember there was that Paul movie, the one with the alien.
Yeah.
That people thought was another of these Edgar Wright films, like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and then they're like, oh, Paul, that's another one of those, and has these two guys in it. And a lot of people wanted to go see that and were disappointed because it's not an Edgar Wright movie.
No.
So
I think it needs to be the three of them together. I mean, them as actors, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, are amazing.
they've done really well outside of like
Yeah.
these like comedy stuff.
Yeah, they have, but I think, just to kind of have that magic formula, it needs the three of them to break the trilogy into a saga. And it could happen someday.
I mean, I think like, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost might be too old to play the characters they were playing in the original, in like the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah.
Because I don't really know how old Shaun is supposed to be in this. Like 30? Maybe? Right?
Oh, no. He's 29.
Oh.
Because when he's at work and the guy's like, okay, granddad, and he's like, I'm not granddad. He goes, I'm 29 for Christ's sakes. And it's just like, so Shaun's at the brink of 30.
Yeah.
And it should be...
Which, like, that's usually the sign once you hit 30, that's the, like, make or break where you have to become an adult now. You're not in your 20s anymore, no party anymore.
No hanging out at the Winchester every opportunity that you get.
Hey, I like the Winchester, though. It's fun. I really enjoy both of them in this movie, and it is a great display of, like, their chemistry as, like, a comedic duo, because they do remind me of those, like, classic vaudeville comedy duos, Laurel and Hardy. They even kind of remind me of Bing Crosby and Bob Hope.
The Marx Brothers.
The Marx Brothers, yeah.
Because there's a lot of physical comedy to their movies.
Yeah. You ever taken a shortcut before? Docks over the fucking fence. It's good. It's all funny. But yeah, I'm big fan of those actors, the characters they play. Wonderful.
Yeah, and it also helped that they were roommates prior to this movie, so... it's not an act for this movie. They just, took back from when they lived together and just really made it feel organic.
Then they did a TV show with Edgar Wright for, I don't know, like,
was it
2 years, 3 years, something like that?
Was it like 2 seasons?
Maybe. It was called Spaced. It was, an English television show.
Yeah.
We never got it in America, to my knowledge, until well after, like, Shaun of the Dead became big.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, this is great. And they, exported it over finally.
And Spaced is the reason why we got Shaun of the Dead in the first place.
Yeah. I heard it was based off one of their episodes, right?
Yeah, they did. It was like a Resident Evil episode where he takes, I think, speed. And he has, like, this weird dream where he's killing zombies in his house. And him and Edgar Wright were like, you know what? This was a really fun episode. I think we could parlay this into a movie.
I mean, oh God, I can't tell you how many episodes of, like, The Twilight Zone have been, like, co-opted and changed and turned into movies. Mm-hmm. But that happens a lot. I mean, how many people watch, like, old Twilight Zone episodes, old episodes of, what have you, Gilligan's Island, Star Trek, Gunsmoke, pick something. Yeah. And they go like, man, this is a really good episode. And then they're like, I'm going to steal the beats from this, maybe flesh out some characters, and I'm just going to like make kind of a cheap movie with that.
Yeah.
Like, I think every episode of The Twilight Zone at this point has been made into, like, can be connected to a movie. But,
and I mean, Shaun of the Dead is a great movie. I mean, there's so many layers to it that it doesn't feel like, oh, they took this from, like, an episode that inspired them. It's like, no, this is, like, a full-fledged story.
Yeah, it's also really well written. I wanted to talk about that, like, the script for this, because it has this interesting, like, cyclical nature to, like, the script and the plotting and the dialogue, because it's like, oh, they start at the Winchester, they end at the Winchester.
Yeah.
They have this dialogue beat with Shaun's ex-girlfriend that is repeated in a new context at the end of the film. It's like, oh, how are you doing? Surviving.
Yeah.
Oh, how's Liz? She's doing okay now.
Yeah.
Things like that. And then you also have the thing where it's, oh, Shaun has the shotgun, and he's, trying to fend the pub, and the whole dialogue is called back to from when Ed is playing the video game, and Shaun's like, top left, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really like that, because it's a really tight, interesting way the story is structured and the dialogue is structured, where we start in this one world, the normal world, everything changes, and now with new context, the same words mean something different. And I'm like, man, that is just like, that's like Shaun. He's the same guy before, but now the context is different, and he's a new man.
He is a new man.
It's really neat.
I also really liked how Edgar Wright did the parallels during the opening montage, the credits,
Oh,
where we see the future zombies at work and just their everyday lives and how they're already acting like zombies.
yeah, that's one of those George Romero social commentary moments where all these people in their mundane lives, man, they're just a bunch of zombies, man.
And then soon enough, they would be.
Yes.
And a lot of those extras that did play zombies were fans of Spaced.
Yeah, I mean, Space was actually like a really, okay, I'm not gonna say big, but it was like a good cult show. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like how, I'm trying to think of like what a cult TV show is, like people would know about now. Something that was like, only ran for like, like Firefly. That's a really good example.
Oh, yeah.
It ran for like 6, 8 episodes, something like that.
And people are still fighting to get it back on the screen.
People are still fighting to get Firefly back. They got a movie because fans loved that shit so much. It was a huge, huge cult following. And Space kind of had that same vein, a lot smaller and quieter, but they had that same thing going on, and that explains why, he was able to pay these people like almost nothing to be in this movie.
Yeah.
That's, I mentioned George A. Romero earlier, and this movie is, it's Shaun of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, which
Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead, and I think around this time is when the remake came out.
Yeah, the remake for Dawn of the Dead came out the same year as Shaun of the Dead, and studios, especially in the UK, because it came out in the UK before it ever came here. I don't even know if we even got an actual like screening here,
or like a theatrical run.
Yeah, I think we just got it straight to DVD here, because that's actually the first way that I saw this movie.
That's the same for me. I still have the DVD I got. Yeah. And I want to say I got it probably in 04, 05. Whenever it showed up in America is probably when I got it, because I'm just big into horror movies.
Same.
But also it's called Shaun of the Dead, and I feel that probably made people think it was one of those parody movies. Like it was one of the movies where it's like, oh, this is just like another like scary movie. Oh, it's not. It's gotta be kind of cringy, and it's like it's way better than that.
Oh yeah, it's an excellent movie, and it was such an issue that in the UK they were like, you know what, you need to wait and show Shaun of the Dead, at least months after this, because I think regular Dawn of the Dead came out in March of 2004, so they pushed Shaun of the Dead all the way back to September.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a big jump, because this is after the big summer movies. I'm not too sure about the UK if they kind of have like
they have the same releasing schedule as we do, summer's big blockbuster stuff. But I wanted to bring up that Dawn of the Dead thing because that's a remake of George Romero's masterpiece.
Yes.
And then Dawn of the Dead shows up, this movie comes up, people like, if you were like in the know and you're like, oh, that's not a parody film, it's a great film, blah blah blah. I'm like, it looks like a parody film on the cover, right, and it looks like a rip of like Dawn of the Dead, but this movie also, it takes inspiration from George Romero films, right? Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
Edgar Wright even made sure that George A. Romero had a private screening of this.
Oh really?
In Florida, in his hometown, to make sure hey, we love your work. We are paying homage to your work, so here you go. You could see us. And in the scene, in the movie, they have a scene where Ed tells Shaun's mom, "We're coming to get you, Barbara." And
which is like the most famous line from Night of the Living Dead.
Exactly. And George A. Romero was just so engrossed in the movie, it went right over his head. He was talking on the phone with Edgar Wright, and Edgar Wright was like, hey, did you like that little Easter egg we gave you? And he's like, what are you talking about? And he told him, we're coming to get you, Barbara. He's like, oh no, I didn't even, put 2 and 2 together. He was just so happy with what he was seeing.
And that is one of those great things, because I'm of the opinion that Night of the Living Dead is like one of the most important films in American cinema.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. There's not an independent film made after that doesn't take inspiration from it. Period. End of sentence. Also, that's a really, like, good way to do just, those homage things. I'm coming to get you, Barbara, because that's a really natural thing to like say. It's like, hey, don't worry, we're coming to get you.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good little Easter egg cameo. Yeah.
And it also kind of ties into our high anxiety episode where Mel Brooks worked with Alfred Hitchcock. And the whole movie was just based off of his work.
Yeah.
And Alfred Hitchcock was like, that was great. I wish I could have achieved something like this in my filming career. And it was just like, wow, these greats that have been around for so long.
They still appreciate guys when they're just like, oh, you're doing what I was doing, and you ran with it. I dig it.
Yeah, and the fact that they're so, genuine about it, too. They're not kind of like, oh, really, you're kind of impersonating what I do. They're like, wow, you're doing this? Can you imagine if you did it this way?
Well, George Romero, because everything I've seen about George Romero was he was like a dude.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, man, he was an artist. He was this, like, he's, a rebel. He's doing all this social commentary. He's like, fuck icon. The man. He's this icon. But every interview, he's just like, oh, no, I was saying that because I was like, I'm a child of the fucking, 60s, man. Yeah. Peace and love. But, sometimes you just really like to see people's heads blown up. And I'm like, this guy, George Romero, he's a bro. But, yeah, so I wanted to bring up George Romero back on the thing I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Because the movie obviously is taking homage from it, right?
Yes.
I was, wondering how much of it, because we get, how much of it is like homage and how much of it is just tropes from zombie fiction, because George Romero wrote the book on modern zombies, and it's like we have the siege at the Winchester, which is in every kind of like Romero film. There's always a siege at the end. The shotgun, yeah.
The Winchester itself.
Yeah, the literal Winchester.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious. Is there anything that jumps out at you was like, okay, that's a straight Romero riff?
The child. There's also a zombie child.
Is there? Where in Shaun is there a zombie kid?
The kid with the soccer ball.
Oh fuck yeah!
It's not like
that's one of those blinking you miss it ones that I always like just ignore.
Yeah, and then it's even kind of like prophesized. When the kid hits Shaun in the head with the soccer ball the day before the zombie apocalypse starts, and he goes, you're dead. And then the next morning, he's a zombie, still kicking a soccer ball.
Yeah.
But it's like we have the child in Night of the Living Dead, and we have a child in Shaun of the Dead.
We also have the kids in Dawn of the Dead.
Oh god, those just traumatized me.
Because they were the only fast zombies in Romero films.
Yeah, I mean, oh my god, in like the Snyder Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yeah,
that one. Those children just scared the crap out of me.
I was talking about the OG one because in Romero zombie films, the only time you ever see a fast zombie is in the original Dawn of the Dead. Peter Foray goes in to like, I don't know, this like truck stop or whatever, and these kids run out and they like jump at him because they're like, I don't know, 5 and 8 year old like little kids, and they put them in zombie makeup and say, okay, you're gonna come out, you're gonna go after him, and they're like, yay, and they ran on, fucking attack Peter Foray, and so those are the only fast zombies, but it also goes into, that might be another little nod, is the kid still playing with his soccer ball, because kid zombies are just better zombies than adult zombies, I guess.
Ball is life.
Ball is life. Ball is life.
Yes.
But to continue on with our lives, the rest of this movie.
Yes.
So where do you want to go up after this?
Well, I think we also have to give like a special nod to Shaun's parents.
Oh yeah.
Because Bill and I love him.
Oh god,
he is amazing. He's a great actor.
Has he been in every Edgar Wright film, or is he just in all the Cornetto trilogy?
I'm not sure if he's in At World's End.
I know. I think he is. I think he's like the main bad guy at the end of the film that comes in and it's like, oh,
that's
I'm
right.
Here to reveal the plot to you.
And that's what I love about him. You don't know who you're getting in the movie, because he's either comic, he's either the bad guy, or he's the straight man.
Yeah. And he has a real versatility as an actor.
And we get him as the straight man in this movie, where he's married to Shaun's mom. And he is the stepfather who came in when Shaun was, I think he says 12 or 14, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it's been a really tough relationship, because Shaun very much knows his own father, and it's just, you're the new guy coming in, trying to, change my life, flip my life upside down. And we don't see it until Shaun's stepdad dies, where it's, hey, hey, I've really loved you all these years and I've cared about you. You know, I'm sorry I was so strict on you. I just wanted you to feel like you had an authority figure in
You
your
know,
life.
I wanted you to have a dad.
Yeah. And it was just, very emotional to see Shaun in return where he's in tears and he's upset that he's dying. And it's just, you could see that regret of him. I should have been a little bit more understanding, a little bit more caring to my stepdad all these years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a good performance because even when Shaun's dad turns into a zombie, still turns down the radio in the car.
Yeah, that's a funny little bit there.
And it's so simple too. It's just, a good pan over to him and just radio cuts off.
There's nothing of Phil left in that car. Radio turns on. I was like, oh, there's a little something left in there.
But we gotta go.
That's the thing. Like in these movies, there's so many little like blink and you miss it comedy beats all over this film, and it's wonderful. Flipping the switch when the two survival parties meet and they're just mere opposites of each other. Yeah, it's like super funny.
And he's like, this is my friend Yvonne. That's her boyfriend, and
they're basically dressed exactly like the other. Exactly
the same. They look kind of like each other, but not really. And it's just they all, do their greetings as they're walking by each other. Hi, hello.
It's great.
It's
wonderful.
It's those little things that they came up with that were kind of like, I probably couldn't have thought of that myself, but it's so simple.
It's so simple and it just works. That's probably why this movie's like hit so well outside of like England.
Yeah, it goes up there with when Shaun gets dumped by Liz, and he finally goes home with Ed after they get drunk at the pub, and they're having their own little disco party up in the attic, and Pete is just like, I'm not having this.
It's 4 in the fucking morning.
It's Saturday. No, it's not, because it's fucking Sunday, and I fucking work in the fucking morning. And it's just like, you can empathize with Pete, because it's like, I get it. You have to go to work super early in the morning.
But it's electro, prick.
You gotta enjoy yourself some good electro.
I guess. Yeah, it is funny because it's like all the characters in here, they do exactly what they need to, and Pete is like the funny asshole at the beginning of the movie, and it's a good time.
We only see him laugh once.
I think so.
No, that's it. When they're talking about how they got high and they were, playing games, and they start laughing, and then Shaun's like, when was that? He was like, that was 5 years ago.
When's he going home?
Yes.
He's been crashing on our couch for 5 years, Shaun.
And I mean, in the midst of this dance party and Pete being, pissed off at the two of them, he tells Shaun, sort your life out. And before, Shaun collapses for the night, he writes it down on the little dry erase board and wakes up.
To-do list, sort your life out.
Sort your life out. And the next morning, zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. I mean, hey, signaling what this movie's going to be about, sorting Shaun's life out.
But it's just like, man, that is just like a hard reset. It's like, you know what? I'm going to sort my life out starting tomorrow. And you wake up and it's like, oh, it's all out chaos outside. Well,
looks at you in the year of 2020. Every day was that.
I'd want to talk about the dark times.
Well, okay, so we're in agreement here. This is a fantastic movie.
Absolutely.
Huge praise.
Yes.
Is there anything in here you're like, okay, that doesn't work, rubs you the wrong way, you could have changed that? Because there is one moment in this movie that I'm like...
For you?
For me, there's one moment. There's like one dialogue thing that I'm like, I don't like that. There's just one.
What was it?
I don't know. I want you. Do you got anything? Anything out there that you're like, doesn't work?
I mean, there's a couple of words that they use that I'm like, yeah, you guys probably could have not needed those.
When Ed shows up, he's like, "What's up?"
Yeah,
N-words?
yeah, that.
That's a very weird. That's a really weird thing. But I mean, like, okay, it's.
But Ed's also a weird guy. So
yeah, Ed's also kind of weird, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
I mean, he also drops, the C word when we meet him.
Yeah.
It's Shaun and Liz having this, deep conversation about they're stuck in a rut, and he's just, can I get any of you blanks a drink? And it's just like so random, but at the same time, this is Ed.
And also, let's be honest, we've met people like Ed before.
Yes, we have.
We went to school with people like Ed.
Yeah, we have.
And that's probably goes to it, just like, that's like a character thing. It's like, okay, that goes to like Ed's weird immaturity kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I can see that, because it is just because there are a few things where I'm like, Ed, you're a little too much in certain like line reads,
Yeah.
so that might have that's an interesting critique. I get you.
Yeah. But what about your critique?
When Barbara is giving Liz the necklace, and she's like, "This is from Shaun's father, his real father," and
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, "Real father," but like Shaun just like accepted
Yeah.
Phil as like his like real dad, like
Yeah.
he is his father, he is his dad. And
It
I'm like, and then Barbara is just like, he wasn't his father. He wasn't his real father. And I'm like, that word choice is like, I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way. Because I'm like, man, Shaun had this whole emotional thing where it's just like, you know, this father figure who's been in my life. He's been tough on me, but he cared about me. That is like the man who like raised him.
Who was there every day?
There every day. And then, granted, his birth father, he died when he was like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So that. No fault of his own not being there for the rest of the time.
It's not like he walked out on the family.
But it is one of those things where I'm like, that line read just rubbed me the wrong way.
It could even be a thing where it was just written that way, so when you hear it, it's just like, oh, okay, we're talking about...
It's more pointed.
Yeah, instead of saying his birth father, I think it's just, like his blood father, his blood,
Yeah.
versus...
His real father.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a thing for simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
But,
I get what you mean.
It's one of those things where I'm like, man, they just done Phil dirty right there. My boy Bill Nye.
And then, unfortunately, Barbara doesn't last too long after that.
Yeah, she's zombified like the next cut.
And that's another tough moment in the movie when Shaun has to kill his own mother.
And that's like a real emotional beat in what up until this has been a pretty light like zombie romp through England.
Yeah, because we have, the breakup, and it's only sad for a minute or two because Ed's there to be the comic relief and to help Shaun kind of pull through his depression. And then we have Phil dying, and then Barbara. So
Barbara dying really kicks off like the worst moment.
Oh yeah.
Or like where everyone starts getting picked off right after that, because Phil's the only person who died up until that point.
Yeah.
But he was in a scene and then he died.
Yeah.
Barbara, we followed her throughout the movie. We followed all these characters throughout the movie. And I'm like, Barbara dying, you really feel it. Like, really feel it. And you feel it through, like, Shaun.
And
who Simon Pegg is working his ass off in that scene.
He is, and it's, it puts you in his position of, okay, you're stuck in this circumstance, and your mother's become infected. What do? Do you allow her to become a zombie and just kind of roam off into the world, or do you put her down so that, she doesn't have to deal with this? And you don't have to deal with seeing someone else killing your mother. It's very dark.
Yeah.
And then, the part of the group that's with them, the guy that's in love with Liz, I can't think of his name. David, there you go. He's really provoking Shaun because she just dies, and you have, at least a couple of minutes.
You did the right thing, Shaun.
Yeah.
And then they're like, get fucked, David.
Yeah. And then David tries to shoot Shaun.
And that just starts more bullshit.
And it's
over after that.
It's like, we get it throughout, the entire movie up until David's death that he is very much in love with Liz. I don't know if
Diane is just like his on the surface girlfriend so he can be close to Liz.
Diane is Liz's best friend and flatmate. And it's just like you're with her kind of as a placeholder until Liz breaks up with Shaun and you could kind of just swoop in. And it's this thing of they've known each other since college, and it's just like, she didn't like you in college.
You never made your move, dude. You missed the boat.
And it's like, I think even if he made his move, it was never going to happen.
Probably not. But again, lighthearted comedy, guys.
Yes.
Super fun comedy.
Yeah. And that prick, he gets pulled apart. It is so gruesome. I have to look away whenever they kill David off in the movie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and also that's a homage. I just noticed that's a homage to Day of the Dead, where they, like, rip up the captain's, like, body in that one. But yeah, like, honestly, I really dig this movie. Really good.
Really fun movie. I thought a great title that they didn't use. They wanted to use Tea Time of the Dead.
Too British.
Wouldn't
have sold anywhere but England.
But Shaun of the Dead works. It's an amazing thing. I also love how, throughout the movie, Shaun is called Pickle from his mom.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that's, a whole thing with Edgar Wright. That's what his mom calls him.
I wonder if Edgar Wright went through, like, a bad breakup, and this was, like, his therapy for that.
Possibly, yeah.
Because this seems like one of those movies that there's probably a lot more of, like, the artist in here than we really think.
Yeah, because I was watching an interview with Simon Pegg, and he was talking about, at the time when him and Nick Frost were roommates, Edgar Wright was like their girlfriend that wanted them to just get out of the house and out of the pub and go do things, and they were just kind of like, oh, I want to stay home and I don't want to, really do anything. But Simon Pegg was talking about a girlfriend at the time, and I thought, oh, maybe this is where they're tying in the Liz storyline. Maybe she got sick of it and left. And he goes, no, eventually I went off to marry that girlfriend, and she's the mother of my children, so it's kind of like...
Sometimes being a lazy schmuck works out, guys.
I guess so. So it might be a thing where maybe Edgar Wright did go through a breakup and was kind of like, this is how I'm going to cope. I'm going to write this movie, and by the end of the movie, I'm going to be a changed man.
Yeah.
And I think this really just blew up Edgar Wright's career.
Oh, yeah. Before this, he was a TV director.
Yeah. And now, he does some amazing movies.
Yeah, now he's one of the most, like big name directors you can get. He's an A-list director now.
Yeah.
This, Baby Driver, like all those stuff. All these movies like he's come out with have been like fantastic.
Yeah.
But Boo, that might lead us around to our final thoughts on Shaun of the Dead. And I want to know, the final thoughts. Really, really surprise me here. What do you think of the movie?
I think it's an excellent movie.
Excellent movie.
Excellent movie. Apart from a couple of words that I might change, I wouldn't change anything else.
You're just like, if Ed dialed it back in a few scenes, it might make the movie better, but that ain't gonna happen.
That's not him.
Right.
This is who Ed is, and I think before we, completely end our episode, what is your favorite scene in the movie?
My favorite scene in the whole movie?
Scene, maybe a line, something that makes you laugh every time, even though...
Have you ever taken a shortcut before? I know I'm basic as shit, but like I still laugh my ass off every time he does that. And it's in every one of the movies, and it gets me every time.
It is great.
Well, what about you, Boo? What's your favorite scene?
Oh, it's gotta be the part where they're killing the bartender at the Winchester to Don't Stop Me Now.
To Don't Stop Me Now.
By Queen. And it's just, why is Queen on? It's on random, and they're just fighting to Don't Stop Me Now, and it just works so well. All the movement is choreographed really well, and it's just so funny.
That Edgar Wright is the king of visual comedy now.
Yeah. I have one trivia fact that I think you're gonna like.
Okay, you get one.
I
you
get
one, and then
okay.
we get to let the people go.
All right, because this is about a certain episode that we just recently did for... What was our theme last month?
I don't remember. I just record, watch the movies, edit the episodes.
Wow.
Do a lot of the scheduling. I don't know what's going on.
Well, last month we did an episode on An American Werewolf in London. And Mary, who is our zombie in the backyard that Shaun and Ed, first really have to deal with, hand-to-hand combat. She works for a supermarket called Landis, and that was an homage to John Landis.
Oh shit!
Who directed An American Werewolf in London.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we don't only have, an Easter egg to George A. Romero. We have John Landis also, who was also a big influence on Edgar Wright.
I wonder how many random horror movie Easter eggs are in this. There's probably a billion of them.
We'd have to watch it again and just solely focus on that.
Like go scene by scene on all the details.
Yeah, but also, I guess over there in the UK, there's like a popular chain of convenience stores called Landis. And probably seeing it, they're like, you know what, let's switch it up. Well, we have Landis, who created...
That's also like just an easy change. Like we can use all their stuff, we just change something so we don't get sued.
Yeah, you change it so you don't get sued, but also you're paying homage to another great director. And that is my trivia fact.
All right. You got your one in, and it was a good one.
I try.
But, everyone, that is going to bring us to an end here for this episode with Shaun of the Dead. And next week, to finish off our Undead September.
Next week is the last week of Undead September.
And we're going to talk about a film that I was very excited for. Never seen before, but it stars the California Klaus Kinski, possibly the greatest living actor, Nicolas Cage, in a very early role in Vampire's Kiss.
Dean is so hyped.
You have no idea. I fucking love Nicolas Cage movies. They're great. Every last one of them.
And this is one of the few films that we're actually going in blind. We haven't seen this.
Haven't seen it at all. I do know a little bit about it from, the research, the mild research we did for fucking programming this.
Yeah.
But I do believe there's no undead people in this, quote unquote, but the undead thing is Nick Cage's career because he refuses to die. He can be in as many bad movies as he wants. He just keeps on keeping on. But there you go.
And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Film Club Podcast. If you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and I think we have one more place that you could find us.
Yeah, you can find us on our YouTube channel, In the Frame, where you can find this podcast, the Film Club Podcast, the other podcasts we do, the Double Feature, and the Film Odyssey Podcast, which are really fun. We talk about a lot of movies on there. Come and check it out.
And with that, we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Peace.